I want a divorce. The words were barely out of my mouth before a cold stiletto knife pressed against my throat. Say that again. I was married to the only daughter of a major organized crime capo, a woman rumored to have personally executed 3 traitors using the heel of her 6-inch pump. I married her to save my life, but I felt like I was living in a state of even higher alert. For a month, she slept in the master suite, and I slept on the living room sofa. We avoided eye contact for longer than 3 seconds. I honestly preferred being hunted by my old enemies to spending another day with this she-devil. I closed my eyes and went for broke. I said I want a divorce. The pain I anticipated never came. She withdrew the knife, but her eyes were suddenly red-rimmed, and her voice was laced with an unbearable vulnerability. My dad said if you ever left, he'd break my legs. She pulled my hand up and placed it on her thigh, whispering, "Try it. They're very soft. Even if they don't break, you could play with them for a long time. Please don't go, okay?" My hand froze in place. The skin beneath my palm was warm, supple, and impossibly smooth. It was a jarring, almost sickening contrast to the murderous ferocity she had displayed moments earlier. My brain completely crashed. Seeing my lack of response, fat tears started rolling down her cheeks. She looked like a tiny animal abandoned by the whole world. Choked with sobs, she repeated, "Touch them, see? Aren't they soft?" This dramatic turn threw me completely off balance. What could I do? Like an idiot, I just nodded dumbly. My Adam's apple bobbed uncontrollably. She instantly broke into a tearful smile, carefully pulling her leg away, looking as satisfied as a kid who had finally gotten a piece of candy. I practically scrambled back to my designated territory, the living room sofa. I didn't sleep at all that night. My mind was a loop reel, her fierce expression holding the knife, her tearful plea, and the lingering, undeniable soft warmth under my palm. The next morning, I emerged from the bedroom with dark circles under my eyes. A plate of breakfast sat on the dining table. It was a fried egg charred beyond recognition and a glass of iced milk. Serafina Vance, the she-devil, sat opposite me, nervously fidgeting with her fingers. She had made it. She wouldn't look at me, her face turned away, offering only a rigid profile. I walked over, sat down, picked up a fork, and, without changing my expression, lifted the piece of black charcoal to my mouth. Crunch! A heavy, bitter flavor exploded instantly. I chewed impassively and swallowed. Sitting across from me, her eyes immediately lit up like a spark igniting in the dark night. I took a gulp of the cold milk to wash down the burnt taste, and then tentatively spoke. "About what you said yesterday, about breaking your legs." The light in her face instantly vanished. Her complexion turned stark white in a flash. Immediately, that familiar icy coldness and brutality enveloped her again. "It has nothing to do with you," she said, rising to her feet and tossing the words coldly over her shoulder. "You just need to stay here and stay alive." Watching her hurried retreat, I suddenly understood something. Maybe the person she was truly afraid of wasn't me at all. It was her father, the crime boss who could casually threaten to break his daughter's legs. This marriage was a survival trade for me, but for her, wasn't it also a beautiful, gilded, and utterly cold cage? I decided not to mention the divorce for now. First, survive. Then observe. This she-devil. She seemed different from the rumors. I began to observe Serafina discreetly. As a PhD in psychology, observation and analysis were my instincts and my weapons. I soon realized that her ferocity and brutality were like a rehearsed, programmatic performance. Whenever the family bodyguards or the butler were present, she immediately switched to she-devil mode. Her expression was frigid, her words clipped, radiating an aura of untouchable danger. But the moment we were alone, she deflated like a punctured balloon. She would curl up alone in the corner of the massive sectional sofa, secretly watching an old animated show called Starfall Academy, hugging a rabbit pillow, giggling softly. She would order a huge amount of takeout, filling the entire table, but only take one bite of each dish. I later understood that she wasn't wasteful. She simply had no idea how much one person was supposed to eat. Growing up, she'd always eaten with someone, or rather, under surveillance. These small discoveries were like puzzle pieces, slowly constructing a picture of Serafina that was completely different from the rumors. That afternoon, I was organizing the research materials I had brought with me in the study. This room, originally belonging to Victor Vance, was now my sanctuary. Distracted, I accidentally sliced my finger on the sharp edge of a paper stack. A bead of blood instantly welled up. TSS. I sucked in a sharp breath. The study door slammed open. Serafina rushed in, still wearing that fierce, angry expression. "What happened?" she roared, and then saw my raised finger and the spot of blood. The fierceness instantly melted away, replaced by palpable panic. You're bleeding. She reacted as if she'd seen the apocalypse, frantically searching the depressing, luxurious mansion. Finally, she found a dusty first aid kit inside an old cabinet. She slammed the box heavily onto the desk and clumsily fumbled through its contents. When she located a box of cartoon Band-Aids, she looked like she'd found salvation. But she was too agitated. The hands rumored to have killed men with high heels were shaking so badly she couldn't tear open the small Band-Aid wrapper. Damn it, she cursed under her breath, on the verge of tears. Watching her near breakdown, something inside me suddenly softened. For the first time, I actively extended my other, unharmed hand toward her. Let me. She froze, staring blankly at me. I gently took the Band-Aid from her hand, and together, we carefully tore the packaging open. When she put the bandage on my finger, her movements were laughably clumsy, yet so painstaking that it stunned me. It was as if this insignificant finger of mine were some priceless relic. A Band-Aid stamped with a pink kitten was stuck on crookedly. Thank you, I said, prompted by an impulse I couldn't explain. Her entire body stiffened. The next second, like a startled rabbit, she sprang up and bolted back to her bedroom. Bang! The closing door echoed through the house, masking her total discomposure. I looked down at the childish, ridiculous Band-Aid on my finger. For the first time, I felt that this house, cold as a tomb, might not be so unbearable after all. I needed to return to the university to retrieve some important research data. This was one of the conditions I had negotiated with Victor Vance before I married into the family. He needed my psychological expertise for consulting work, and I needed to keep my academic research going. When Serafina found out, she insisted on sending her bodyguards with me. It's not safe outside, she said, her face set, using a tone of command. I knew she was talking about Marcus Thorne, the man who had originally forced me into this Vance family lion's den. But I craved freedom, even if it was just a few hours of breathing free air. On the way to campus, I used an excuse and managed to successfully ditch the two black-suited goons. The late afternoon sun on my skin gave me the feeling of being reborn. After grabbing the materials, I didn't rush back, lingering on campus for a while. Only as dusk gathered did I reluctantly start the walk home. To avoid rush hour traffic, I cut through a secluded alley that few people used. As soon as I entered the alley, 3 figures blocked my path ahead. The one in front, a man with bleached hair, wore a malicious smirk. Well, isn't it Dr. Hayes? All alone. My heart sank. Marcus Thorne's people. I tightened my grip on my research bag, forcing myself to stay calm. What do you want? This is a lawful society. The bleached hair man laughed like I'd told the best joke in the world. Lawful society? Dr. Hayes, you're married in the Vance family now. Doesn't talking about the law seem funny? A hulking man next to him stepped closer to me. Mr. Thorne says you embarrassed him at the auction, and today, you're going to learn a lesson. I backed away, my mind racing, trying to stall with words. How much did Thorne pay you? I'll double it. Too late. They gave me no chance. A fist the size of a dinner plate swung toward my face. As a scholar who spent years cloistered in libraries, I was no match for 3 street thugs. I was knocked to the ground instantly. Blows rained down on me, and sharp pain shot through my abdomen. I curled up, clutching my head, feeling my consciousness begin to fade. This is it. I wouldn't survive after all. Just as I thought I was about to be beaten to death, a flash of scarlet, like a bolt of lightning, sliced through the darkening alley. It was Serafina. She wore a form-fitting, fiery red evening gown and 10-centimeter stilettos. Her hands were empty, but she radiated a chilling aura of absolute lethal intent. Stop! Her voice was low but razor-sharp and bone-chilling. The 3 thugs paused, startled to see Serafina, then broke into vulgar, knowing smiles. Look who it is, Miss Vance herself. What? Here to rescue your pretty boy husband. Perfect. We heard Miss Vance has some moves. The boys here would be delighted to see them. Serafina offered no reply. She moved. I barely registered her actions. I only saw the red streak weaving among the 3 men. The heel of her stiletto became a deadly weapon, stomping precisely onto the tops of their feet and their knees. Her elbows hammered mercilessly into their soft spots and throats. There were no flashy moves. Every strike was quick, accurate, and vicious, designed to incapacitate. It took less than a minute, truly less than 60 seconds. The 3 thugs, who moments ago were full of swaggering aggression, were all crumpled on the ground, groaning in agony, writhing like 3 crushed insects. Serafina stood at the edge of the mess, her red skirt fluttering slightly in the evening breeze, like a blooming flower of death. The rumors. They were true. She was a killer. She turned and walked toward me, a trace of someone else's blood spattered on her face. The image was terrifying and demonic. I felt a primal fear. My body instinctively scraped backward on the ground, retreating a step. Just that one step. It made her stop. Serafina saw my reflexive backward movement, and her entire posture froze. The world-shattering murderous intent on her face vanished without a trace, replaced by something I couldn't decipher, a look of profound, wounded dejection. The breeze at the alley entrance made me realize I was soaked in cold sweat. She didn't approach me again. She stood far off, pulling out her phone and making a call. West Street Alley. Cleanup detail. Soon, several men in black suits arrived and efficiently handled the scene. One of them helped me up. Serafina didn't look at me again the entire time. Back at the oppressive mansion, the atmosphere dropped to freezing point. She went straight to the second-floor bathroom, silent as a soulless automaton. Then, I heard a sound of violent, repressed vomiting from inside. I stood in the living room, hearing that sound, a tumult of emotions churning inside me. She had saved me, yet I was terrified of her. After hesitating for a long time, I walked upstairs and knocked on the bathroom door. There was no answer, only choked sobs and dry heaving. My heart clenched. Ignoring all politeness, I pushed the door open. The sight before me stunned me. She was nothing like the cold-blooded killer I had imagined. She was slumped against the cold tile floor, the expensive red gown crumpled around her. Her face was pale as paper, and her whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Cold sweat beaded on her forehead, and her lips were bitten devoid of color. This wasn't cold-blooded, it was post-traumatic stress disorder. I instantly realized she wasn't enjoying the violence. She was terrified and violently rejecting it. In that moment, all my fear evaporated, replaced by an inexplicable, complex surge of sympathy. I quickly fetched a glass of warm water and returned to her side. I knelt down and held a cup to her lips. She looked up, and those eyes, usually encased in ice, were now full of terror and fragility, like a lost child. It's okay. Look at me. I used every crisis intervention technique I had learned in school, my voice soft and soothing. Follow my rhythm. Breathe in. Good. Slowly. Breathe out. Like a drowning person clinging to driftwood, she subconsciously followed my breathing cues. Under my soothing guidance, her trembling gradually subsided. Just when I thought she was stable, she suddenly reached out and fiercely grabbed the corner of my shirt. Her grip was surprisingly strong, as if I were her only lifeline. Then, she leaned her head against my shoulder, completely collapsing into me. She stayed there, leaning against me, and fell into an exhausted sleep. Her breathing was even, but conveyed a fragility that spoke of profound relief. This was our first close physical contact in over a month of marriage. Her hair smelled faintly of shampoo, replacing the horrifying scent of blood. I held the position stiffly for a long time until my arm began to ache. Finally, I carefully lifted her into my arms. She was light, impossibly light. Carrying her, I entered her bedroom for the first time. It was a pink princess room, filled with stuffed animals, completely incongruous with her image. I gently placed her on the bed and pulled the comforter over her. Watching the tight frown still etched on her face even in sleep, I felt a flood of mixed emotions. Divorce. The thought wavered in my mind for the very first time. When Serafina woke up, she acted as if nothing had happened. Her attitude toward me was still awkward, but she no longer went out of her way to avoid me. The air between us had undergone a subtle shift. I decided to proactively learn more. I sought out Mr. Gaines, the old butler. He was Victor Vance's trusted confidant and had watched Serafina grow up. I made an excuse, saying I wanted to know Serafina's preferences to improve our marriage. Mr. Gaines looked at me for a long time, his clouded eyes seeming to hold many stories. He sighed and led me to a secluded tea room. Mr. Hayes, you are a kind man. The butler's first sentence surprised me. The miss. She has had a hard life. From Mr. Gaines's fragmented account, I finally pieced together the violent tapestry of Serafina's childhood. Her mother died of illness when she was very young. Victor Vance, the crime lord, didn't know how to raise a daughter, so he used the only method he understood, training in air. He believed violence is the best protection. He taught her to shoot, to fight, and to face the world with the fiercest possible demeanor. The rumor about the high heel killing 3 traitors was true, but the truth was Victor Vance had been ambushed and overwhelmed by enemies. 17-year-old Serafina, trying to protect her fallen father, grabbed the only weapon she had, the high heel on her foot. It was the first time she had killed. She saved her father, but she was so terrified she couldn't sleep for 3 days, plagued by nightmares. Yet Victor Vance had hugged her, laughing loudly, praising her. "That's my daughter. You made me proud." From that day on, she was forced to wear the she-devil mask. All her ferocity stemmed from that one desperate act of self-preservation. All her cold-bloodedness was a cover for a heart that was already shattered. Hearing this, my mind reeled, as if struck by a heavy hammer. I finally understood the blood on her red dress and her subsequent violent vomiting. It wasn't a victor's trophy. It was the instrument of punishment she used on herself every time she was forced to commit violence. I began trying to treat her in my own way. I played soothing classical music on the living room stereo instead of the violent mob movies she usually watched. I started researching recipes and learning to cook. I started with the simplest thing, scrambled eggs and toast, though they were often too salty or too bland. But Serafina ate every single bite clean. Her appetite seemed to improve slightly. One evening, I got up to get water and walked past her walk-in closet. The door wasn't fully shut. I saw her inside, secretly, one by one, tossing all her aggressively styled, sharp, thin-heeled stilettos into a trash bag. She changed into a pair of flat canvas sneakers and clumsily took a few steps in front of the mirror, seeming to adjust. I didn't make a sound to disturb her. The next day, I made an excuse to go out and bought the newest model of white athletic shoes at the mall. That evening, I placed the shoe box on the living room coffee table. Serafina emerged from her bedroom, saw the box, and paused. "For me?" "Yeah." I walked over, opened the box, and took out the brand-new white sneakers. Then, under her stunned gaze, I knelt down on one knee and gently placed the shoes beside her feet. "Try these." I looked up at her and said seriously, "They're faster to run in." The peaceful days didn't last long before they were shattered by a phone call from Victor Vance. "There's a charity auction this weekend. You two attend together." His voice on the phone was as authoritative as ever, leaving no room for negotiation. "Remember, put on a good show. Don't embarrass the Vance name." After he hung up, I could feel Serafina's mood sink completely. She was reluctant, but dared not resist. "Don't want to go?" I asked. She nodded, saying sullenly, "They're all hypocrites, saying hypocritical things." I smiled, trying to ease her tension. "Don't worry. Just pretend you're accompanying me to a boring academic conference. We'll go in, walk around, and leave." On the day of the auction, I went into her closet for the first time. She was agonizing over a rack of brightly colored, overly dramatic evening gowns. Every one of those dresses seemed to scream, "I am not to be messed with." From a corner of the wardrobe, I found an elegant, understated champagne-colored dress. "Wear this one. It's beautiful." She looked at the dress, then at me, and didn't refuse. At the entrance to the venue, I took the initiative to link my arm through hers. Her body instantly stiffened like a rod, but I didn't let go, and she didn't push me away. We walked into the magnificent, glittering hall like a genuine newlywed couple. And then, fate brought us face to face with Marcus Thorne. The refined scoundrel was holding a glass of champagne, his arm linked with a glamorous woman, walking toward us with a sickeningly smug smile. "Dr. Hayes, long time no see. I didn't actually think you'd go through with marrying into money." He looked me up and down, his words dripping with undisguised flippancy and sarcasm. "How's the life of the kept man? Does Vance's food taste good?" The surrounding guest cast looks our way, eager for the show. My expression darkened, and I was about to retaliate. But Serafina stepped coolly forward, shielding me. She was shorter than me, but in that moment, her silhouette felt towering. "My husband's taste is not for an outsider like you to sample." Her voice was quiet, but it clearly carried to every person who was straining their ears for gossip. "Mind your own business. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind helping you so your lips shut with needle and thread." The smile on Marcus Thorne's face instantly froze and turned purple with rage. He hadn't expected Serafina, who usually showed only coldness toward me, to defend me so fiercely. He glared at me furiously and then slunk away with his companion. The onlookers dispersed knowingly. The crisis was averted. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, "Nicely done, much more effective than a high heel." Her body stiffened again. Then, I saw her earlobes flush crimson at a visible speed. She turned her head slightly and gave me a faint, yet utterly genuine smile. It was like ice thawing a fleeting, exquisite blossom. In that instant, all the lights in the ballroom seemed to dim around her. At the auction, we inevitably had a lot of alcohol pushed upon us. Victor Vance's business partners, Marcus Thorne's competitors, and countless others approached with glasses, offering hollow congratulations. I intercepted many drinks for Serafina, and I was starting to feel a bit tipsy myself. On the drive home, The chauffeur drove in front, while Serafina and I sat in the back. The car was quiet, but the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. The alcohol seemed to be a catalyst, dismantling the last wall between us. Ethan, Serafina used my full name for the first time. Her voice was slightly soft and husky from the wine. Your profession. It's psychology, right? It is. So, can you read people's minds? I looked out at the quickly receding neon lights, shaking my head with a smile. I can't read minds. Psychology can only analyze and infer a person's psychological state through behavior and language. I turned to look at her cheeks, flushed with alcohol. For example, I can't analyze what you're thinking right now. Buoyed by the wine, she looked at me steadily, challenging me. Do you want to know? My heart skipped a beat. When we arrived home, the moment the entry light flicked on, Serafina suddenly pushed me against the wall, a perfect wall pin. Copying the assertive female leads from movies, she braced one hand on the wall and hooked the other under my chin, attempting to kiss me. But she was too nervous. I could clearly see her long eyelashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Even the hand bracing the wall was trembling slightly. I couldn't help but chuckle at her cute, blustering facade. Before she could get angry over my amusement, I turned the tables. I took the hand bracing the wall and pulled her gently, letting her fall into my embrace. Then, I lowered my head and kissed her. It was an extremely tender kiss, devoid of any desire or aggression. Just the gentle touch of lips, like a feather, lightly brushing the surface of the heart. Her entire body instantly went soft, like a cat being stroked. That night, she didn't return to her own bedroom. Instead, hugging her rabbit pillow, she curled up on a single armchair next to me and slept soundly. I retrieved a light blanket from the room and carefully covered her. Watching her peaceful sleep, her breathing even, next to me I felt for the first time a sense of home. This relationship, which began with fear and transaction, had, without my noticing, fundamentally changed. I knew it then. I was completely hooked. Hooked by this rumored she-devil, and I was willing. My relationship with Serafina progressed rapidly in an unspoken fashion. We started acting like a regular couple. We curled up on the couch to watch movies. We experimented with disaster meals in the kitchen. And I even watched the silly Starfall Academy with her. This quiet peace and sweetness, however, were noticed by Victor Vance. An in-law he couldn't control and a daughter who no longer blindly obeyed him made him uneasy. He decided to make his move. He summoned Serafina alone under the guise of discussing business. In his penthouse office, overlooking the entire city, he threw a stack of photos and files on a desk in front of her. The photos showed me and Marcus Thorne during our university days. We'd been in the same club. The files contained records of normal business transactions between my family's company and Thorne's firm. But in Victor Vance's narrative, these became ironclad evidence that I had intentionally approached the Vance family, intending to collude with Thorne to swallow the Vance group whole. Sarah, this man has been a liar from the start. He's a mole. He's a spy sent by Thorne to ruin the Vance family. Serafina's deepest fear was betrayal. Her most trusted father had used the most devastating words to stab the fragile trust she had just built. Her resolve began to violently crack. Meanwhile, I also received an invitation from Victor Vance. The one who met me wasn't Vance himself, but his most capable lieutenant, Rico. The location was a gloomy, abandoned factory. Rico didn't mince words. He pushed an unmarked Swiss bank black card and a brand new passport across the table toward me. Mr. Hayes, there's $100 million in here. Enough for you to live a wealthy, comfortable life anywhere in the world. He paused, his tone menacing. Mr. Vance said, take the money, leave the miss immediately, and never show your face again. If you don't accept this generous offer, then we will simply have to help you accidentally vanish from the face of the earth. The threat was naked. In an instant, I understood everything. This was Victor Vance's wedge, a cruel test designed for both of us. He would use money and threats to force me out, and then use evidence to shatter Serafina's trust in me. A perfect way to undercut us both. I picked up the card and the passport, said nothing, and left the factory. Returning home, I opened the door to a deathly silence. Serafina was waiting for me on the living room sofa. The stiletto knife she had held to my throat during our first meeting lay on the coffee table in front of her, glinting menacingly. Her eyes were bloodshot, fixed intensely on me, her voice trembling with extreme suppression. Is what my dad said true? Did you only get close to me to trick me? To take over the Vance family? I didn't answer a question. I simply walked over to her and, silently, placed the $100 million bank card and the passport that could give me a new life next to the knife. The three objects, lying together, looked incredibly ironic. Serafina froze upon seeing the bank card and passport. The anger and despair on her face gradually gave way to immense confusion. I didn't rush to explain, just looked at her calmly. Your father found me today. I spoke slowly, my voice remarkably steady. He gave me two options. 1. Take 100 million and a new identity and vanish completely from your world. 2. Be permanently vanished from this world by him. I repeated Victor Vance's words verbatim. So what did you choose? She asked, her voice shaking, her eyes full of uncertainty. I didn't answer. I took the black card and the passport in front of her, walked over to the fireplace, and threw them both into the roaring flames without hesitation. The plastic card quickly curled and warped in the heat, dissolving into a wisp of black smoke. The paper passport was swiftly consumed by the fire. I turned back to Serafina, who was staring, aghast. I echoed the words she had once spoken to me. $100 million can't buy even one of your legs. I walked up to her, saying clearly, one word at a time, and it definitely can't buy me away from you. This sentence flipped a switch. Serafina's tense body instantly gave way, and tears flooded forth. But this time, it wasn't from fear or wounded pride. It was overwhelming relief and emotion. She lunged into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably like a child. This was our first truly genuine, fully surrendered embrace. I held her tightly, gently patting her back, letting her tears soak my shirt. It's okay. It's okay. I whispered repeatedly in her ear. From now on, we're on the same team. This crisis of trust, orchestrated by Victor Vance, ultimately tied us together tighter than ever before in a way neither of us had anticipated. After she finished crying, Serafina looked up from my embrace, her eyes red and swollen, but the light in them was more resolute than ever. I wiped her tears and proposed a daring plan. We can't stay passive anymore. We need to completely eliminate the external threat of Marcus Thorne, and at the same time, use this opportunity to force your father to truly let go, giving us real freedom. Serafina looked at me and nodded without hesitation. I'm with you. From that day on, a grand performance orchestrated by the scholar and the warrior officially began. We started acting for the benefit of Victor Vance's omnipresent home surveillance. We deliberately argued over trivial things, gave each other the silent treatment, and acted as though our relationship had completely fractured. I even purposely smashed a vase she liked. She, in turn, reverted to her former coldness, ignoring me entirely. All of this was transmitted clearly through the monitors and into Victor Vance's sight. He believed his strategy had succeeded. He thought we were back on a track he could easily control. He lowered his guard, and that was exactly what we wanted. The first step of the plan was to confuse the enemy. I spent several days analyzing all of Marcus Thorne's public records and his company's operating model. He was intensely arrogant and driven by quick profit. This personality type was perfectly susceptible to the trap we designed for him. I used an external channel of the Vance Group that I had turned and deliberately leaked false intelligence to the market. That the Vance family was embroiled in a fierce internal conflict, that Ethan Hayes and Serafina Vance's marriage had collapsed, and that the Vance Group's funds were on the brink of freezing up. To make the news seem more authentic, Serafina played the role of the rebellious daughter seeking revenge on the family due to heartbreak. She dumped several non-essential, peripheral Vance assets onto the market at fire sale prices, creating a moderate panic in the business world. Everyone believed the Vance ship was truly sinking. When the time was ripe, I used an anonymous, encrypted phone to contact Marcus Thorne. Mr. Thorne, long time no see. Who is this? Thorne's voice on the other end was full of suspicion. Someone backed into a corner by the Vance family. My name is Ethan Hayes. I could practically visualize Thorne's smug expression upon hearing my name. I have my hands on the core business secrets of the Vance family, including every single dirty ledger and off-book account. I have only one condition. I need you to put up all of your company's liquid capital to acquire these secrets. I want to personally watch the Vance family be destroyed by my hands. Hatred is the best bait. Thorne took the hook immediately. He was too eager to see his rival disgraced and ruined. He was even more eager to exploit the Vance family's internal conflict and swallow the whole operation in one gulp. We set the transaction location for an abandoned dockside warehouse. The day before the exchange, Serafina used her connections to anonymously tip off both the police and the IRS. The content of the tip-off simply stated that a massive illegal financial transaction would be taking place at the warehouse the following evening. She didn't mention Thorne or us. Everything was in place. On the night of the transaction, I walked into the gloomy warehouse alone, equipped with a miniature recording and tracking device. Serafina and her most trusted inner circle waited outside the perimeter as backup. Before I left, she grabbed my hand, her palm slick with sweat from anxiety. "Ethan, it's too dangerous. Let's call it off." I turned her hand over, looked her in the eye, and said with absolute conviction, "Don't be afraid. This time trust science." This was the biggest gamble we had ever taken on our future. If we won, we'd have open skies. If we lost, total ruin. The warehouse smelled of fish and rust. Thorne was already there. He brought a dozen henchmen and a professional money-counting team, a significant show of force. When he saw me alone, wearing a simple white shirt, my hair messy, and having deliberately applied some makeup to look haggard, he laughed with delight. His victorious, arrogant demeanor made me sick. "Dr. Hayes, look at you now. You look exactly like a stray dog." He walked up to me and patted my cheek with insulting familiarity. "If you knew this would happen, why didn't you just stick to being a bookworm? Why did you have to try and steal my woman?" I didn't retort, just lower my head, feigning resignation. The exchange began. His men verified the authenticity of the secret files I brought, and my people, arranged by Serafina, started counting the cash he provided. Everything was going smoothly. Just as the transaction was halfway complete, and most of the cash was confirmed, Thorne suddenly turned hostile. He pulled out a gun and aimed it at me. "Thanks, Ethan. I'll take these documents, but the money? I'm keeping that. As for you, you can join the Vance family in hell." He had planned all along to kill me, to silence me. The moment he ordered his men to move, the warehouse door burst open with a crash. Serafina and her small team of loyalists surged in like a sharp knife, instantly forming a standoff with Thorne's crew. Thorne was startled to see Serafina, but then sneered maliciously. "Serafina, you came at the perfect time. Now you and your doomed lover," startled to see Serafina, but then sneered maliciously. "Serafina, you came at the perfect time. Now you and your doomed lover can die together." He violently yanked me toward him, pressing the cold muzzle of the gun hard against my temple. "Tell your people to stand down, or I'll blow his head off." Thorne shrieked hysterically at Serafina. Everyone was tense, but in that moment, I whispered softly into his ear, a sound only we could hear. "You already lost." Thorne flinched. "Do you think the warehouse exterior is currently surrounded by Vance's muscle, or by the police?" My voice was quiet, yet it felt like a heavy hammer blow to his core. I continued the psychological offensive, dismantling his final defenses. "Look at your men. They're only here for the money. Do you really think they'll risk their lives fighting the Vance family and the police for you? The second you're caught, they'll be the first to sell you out for leniency." Thorne's henchmen visibly shifted, fear etched on their faces. Just then, from outside the warehouse, the dense, unmistakable sound of police sirens rapidly approached. Thorne's face went completely ashen. To make matters worse, another contingent arrived alongside the police. It was Victor Vance. He had brought the Vance family's full force, a menacing black wave of muscle surrounding the warehouse as well. He had rushed here, believing Serafina was in danger. Caught in a pincer move, Thorne went completely insane. "Stay back. If anyone moves, I shoot." He pulled the trigger. In a flash of lightning, Serafina screamed and lunged forward without thinking, throwing her body in front of mine. Victor Vance, standing at the warehouse entrance, watched his own daughter, the heir he had trained, throw away her life for me, the unarmed scholar. He froze entirely. In the final split second, I fiercely yanked Serafina, pulling her away from in front of me. Simultaneously, using the simple but effective self-defense move Serafina had taught me over the past few months, I snapped my wrist and slammed it hard into Thorne's gun hand. Bang! The shot rang out, the bullet hitting the ceiling. Thorne's gun flew out of his grasp. At that moment, fully armed police breached the door. "Freeze! Police!" Everything fell silent. Marcus Thorne was arrested on the spot for kidnapping, assault, illegal transaction, and multiple other charges. His company was immediately seized, and his empire collapsed overnight. In the hospital hallway, Victor Vance looked at me, only a minor graze on my arm, and then at Serafina, who hovered over me, obsessively peeling an apple. He stood in silence for a very long time. The crime boss, who had commanded fear for half a lifetime, showed fatigue and sorrow for the first time. He finally understood that what he had always offered his daughter was not protection, but a suffocating, heavy shackle. The she-devil mask he believed was unbreakable had been easily torn off by me, a seemingly helpless bookworm. "Kid," he finally spoke, using a tone that was almost one of equality. "My daughter is yours now." He turned to Serafina, his eyes full of complex, genuine paternal love. Take her. Go live your own life. The control, maintained in the name of love for decades, was finally over. Shortly after, Victor Vance formally announced his retirement, transitioning all his businesses to legitimate operations and placing them in the hands of trusted lieutenants. Serafina and I moved out of the depressing, castle-like mansion. We rented a standard downtown apartment with excellent sunlight and a small garden downstairs. I returned to the university to continue my research and doctoral thesis. Serafina enrolled in an adult education program for landscape design, something she had always been interested in but never had the chance to pursue. Life became simple, peaceful, and full of sunshine. One weekend evening, we were curled up on the sofa watching a movie, as usual. I walked into my study and retrieved the divorce papers that I had never signed. They'd been tucked inside one of my academic textbooks. In front of Serafina, I slowly tore them into pieces and tossed them into the trash can. Serafina stared at my actions, then smiled. She smiled like a child who had been given the entire world, her eyes shining brightly. She suddenly took my hand, just as she had during our first intimate encounter, and gently placed it on her own thigh. She tilted her head, asking me slyly, "Still soft?" I squeezed her hand, leaned down, and kissed her lips. In the pause between breaths, I quietly replied, "Yes, and it's mine, always."